Hello YouTube and welcome to the Indie Evolution channel. My name is End Gamer and today I'm going to be giving you a first look at a demo of a brand new classic RPG game from a developer called Ironworks. The name of the game, as you can see, is the Age of Decadence. This is a game I came across on Gamersgate. They had it up for pre-order. Just looked like something new, something different, kind of a throwback to an older type of game that I used to enjoy thoroughly. You don't see a lot of games using the turn-based combat systems anymore. Everything is now more action RPG or an RPG kind of FPS hybrid. But a lot of us remember early 90s, late 80s. When turn-based combat was kind of the thing to do in RPGs, and it really is a great, enjoyable way to play the game. It kind of brings things back to paper and pencil, tabletop kind of RPG games a little bit. So this is a new one. It's an indie title by Iron Tower Studios. Haven't played it, don't know anything about it. I know you see the continue at the bottom. I haven't started a game yet. That just came up by default in the demo. It looks like it has kind of a Roman praetor standing overlooking a landscape, so maybe that's kind of the background or the type of world we play in. I'm not really sure just yet. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and start up a new game. And we'll get to our little message here. For some players, the Age of Decadence is a hard game. Although combat may seem impossible, it merely takes a while to master. Even a single opponent can be extremely challenging, and a single mistake can prove fatal. Fortunately, many fights are optional, and their difficulty can often be lowered via the options available to your character. So if you're up for the challenge, select normal difficulty, create your character, and have fun mastering the system. Alternatively, you can click on the awesome button. Every game should have an awesome button, I guess. And play the game with a pre-made character, a battle-hardened veteran, well-equipped to handle any challenge, and make short work of even the most dangerous enemies. Well, the awesome button sounds like an awesome option for this kind of video, but you know, I really don't want to skip over character creation. I know that's not the end-all be-all of an RPG, but if you're a player like I am, the character creation screen is where you spend a countless amount of time crunching numbers and trying to fit a character into this mold or this role that you've created in your mind for who you want to be in the game world. I'm the kind of guy I read backstory and read the background of these games a lot of the time when I get into them. So we're going to go ahead and go with normal and jump into a little character creation here. Got some nice artwork. Wow, and here we are, loaded up quickly. And we can see the top bar of our screens gives us our statistics and their effects. The main body here on the bottom allows us to name our character, choose our gender, male or female. Also allows us to choose our character's trade from a selection of backgrounds. Gives us the amount of stat points and skill points we can spend. We see our faction's reputation, various noble houses, fond memories of those from Morrowind, when I used to play that game, and there are various other factions here, Imperial Guards, and you have our combat skills, our general skills, and just our character avatar customization. So to start, just going to take you guys through the statistics. Doesn't look like there's going to be anything shocking here, but we'll go ahead and take a look at it. Strength. Influences starting skill values, which is determined to hit chance, and determines damage modifiers and maximum carry weight. It is checked in dialogues and interactions with the game world. pretty standard there. Not a lot of games where I see that strength is checked in your dialogue options. I know in some games strength can be checked if you try to use an intimidation type of conversation option. It'll use your strength partially to see if you're successful, so maybe that works along these lines. This game does promise to have a very open-ended approach to situations. There should be multiple ways to handle almost any situation in the game. And I think if you look at the backgrounds, you'll see a diverse array of backgrounds where you'd say, you know, in a lot of games, if you've chosen the merchant character, for instance, your character maybe isn't as viable as the praetor, which is a warrior class. I don't think that's the case in this game, but we will possibly find some of that out as we get into the demo. Dexterity influences starting skill values, which determine to hit chance, and determines action points and sequence in combat. So that's pretty standard for dexterity. You know, it's your character's kind of hand-eye coordination. It also seems to, often dexterity, you know, it just implies a faster, more nimble character. And that usually plays out pretty well in turn-based games because of the AP systems, where, you know, your dexterous character literally will be able to do more actions in a small period of time. That can really accentuate dexterity as a skill. And also the sequence in combat, having that initiative, that higher initiative phase in combat is useful. So dexterity is usually a skill that I personally go for. Constitution determines your character's hit points and resistance to poison and other harmful substances, which will affect your ability to explore certain locations. It is checked in dialogues and interactions with the game world. Pretty standard. Constitution usually provides a bonus to hit points, and resistance to poison and other harmful substances. So that's pretty standard for Constitution. No surprises there. Perception influences starting skill values for ranged weapons, which determines to hit chance. Determines the accuracy modifier for all weapons and range modifiers for ranged weapons. And helps you spot things which would remain hidden otherwise. It is checked in dialogues and interactions with the game world. Pretty standard for perception. Some games perception only affects ranged weapons. This perception is going to affect accuracy with all weapons. So maybe it can kind of substitute for dexterity. Maybe it complements dexterity. We'll find that out as we get deeper into character creation. It looks like, you know, from what we're looking at here, strength mainly for damage, dexterity mainly for action points, constitution for hit points, perception maybe a greater effect on accuracy than dexterity does. I'd rather be able to swing accurately than swing a lot of times, so maybe perception is even a higher combat skill than accuracy, but we'll find that out. Intelligence influences starting skill values and determines starting skill points and bonus skill points. It is checked in dialogues and interactions with the game world. The bonus skill points are added only to points earned by completing quests, not to points earned by killing enemies or passers-by. So at the beginning we got a pretty standard definition of intelligence. It affects skill points. Pretty simple. This game doesn't appear to have any kind of magic system, but I do see Lore Master down there, so we'll look into that. The bonus skills are added only to points earned by completing quests. So your skill point bonuses that come from intelligence, you don't get those for doing physical actions. You only get them for completing quests, and in completing a quest you'll have to interact with different characters and do different things you'd at least make synonymous with intelligence, even if it's just a conversation. So that kind of makes sense. I actually like that. That's taking a little different slant on things than what you normally see in an intelligence skill. And I don't see anything about intelligence as affecting spells. I'm not sure if this game, like I said, I'm not sure if this game even has spells. If it doesn't have magic, in my opinion, all the better. It's just something that sets this game apart from others. So Charisma influences starting skill values and determines reaction and reputation modifiers. It is frequently checked in dialogues. You can see that that also affects your reaction bonus. Pretty standard for charisma. And I'm sure the set of skills that charisma affects are going to be etiquette, persuasion, streetwise, these kind of skills. So we'll move on to our next thing. That's just our name, Gaius. Again, kind of keeping in the Roman theme. And our trade, which we'll select from our background list here. We'll go ahead and find out about our background. Your background is not a character class. It doesn't affect skill values or character progression. Your background affects your initial standing with various factions and will determine how your adventure begins. It is also checked in dialogues. Okay, so let's go to our first background here. And interestingly enough, despite this description that says that this doesn't affect skill values, once you click on it, you can see that all the skill values have changed. So I'm not sure if, obviously this is a pre-release demo of the game, guys. So there are going to be little inconsistencies like that. I'm not sure if this is something where the text is incorrect, or if this is something where the stats and the skills should not have altered themselves. Because it looks like once I do select that, my statistic points are now gone. But you can see here I can get them back. So there's nothing set in stone when I choose that. I can still make my character however I'd like to, but it looks like there is a default template for the statistics of each background. Our skill points basically just change based on our intelligence. But it looks like there are certain skill points, even though it does say, as I can point out at the bottom of the screen here, it doesn't affect skill values. We can clearly see that the skill values have changed and do have certain presets. Not a big deal. I'm sure that verbiage or that action will be corrected before the game is released. And we'll start with our first background, which is Assassin. That's always an exciting character class. Not character class, excuse me. Trade or background. Assassin. When diplomacy fails, assassination is often the only recourse. Renowned and respected for their ability to resolve disputes with the least amount of bloodshed. Cloaked by the shadow of night, assassins are in high demand among all strata of society. Whether drawn from a petty dispute or a matter of state, blood is blood. So that's a really good description of a assassin. We can see that the template for assassin leaves us with high perception, high dexterity, pretty even keeled. The larger weapons, axe and hammer, are lighter concentrations of combat points for the assassin. Dagger, bow, crossbow, and throwing. Obviously critical strike and dodge. Over in the general skills, we can see the highlights are sneak, steal, are his highest skills, which makes sense. I don't know if the assassins are really known for their ability to steal. I would have rather have seen those steal points defaulted to lockpick or disguise. But that's just a personal preference. And we can see the factions. Also, you have obviously the Imperial Guards aren't going to be big fans of yours, but okay, we'll move on to the description of the next class here. And we can see that as a thief, you're not popular with any of the factions. Your combat skill is slightly lower than the assassin starting out. Still strong with the dagger and with throwing. And obviously lockpick, sneak, and steal are kind of your stock and trade. Regardless of the social fabric, there will always be those that prefer to live in accordance with their own code of conduct, outside of the law. To the thief, a world in ruins is a world of opportunity. While those that covet power are consumed by deceit, the thieves are turning a tidy profit on their neglected wealth. And we'll move on to the next class here. The Praetor, which seem to be favored by the House Daratan. Strangely enough, the Praetor... Actually, let's read the description first. Praetor, always looking for promising individuals to serve their interests. Noble houses elevate ambitious men with a diverse set of skills to the rank of Praetorian Guard. While most possess some martial training, and patiently wait for the spoils and glory of bloodshed, others still favor the gentler arts of diplomacy and take a discreet yet active role in the courts of nobles. Okay, so that explains the skill set we're seeing here. I thought of a Praetor as more of a warrior class, but obviously that's not what it is. This is kind of the jack-of-all-trades class, which probably isn't a bad place to start, but we'll take a look next at one that I'm actually not too sure about just looking at the name of it. This seems to be based highly on perception and intelligence. Lore masters appear to be well liked by pretty much all factions. And onto their description. Lore master. Preserving and understanding pre-war knowledge and technology is a lucrative business. An increasing number of people see their salvation in the ashes of the past, and thus the market is becoming saturated with icons and objects from an old empire, most without any real value. Always on the lookout for something of real worth, cataloging and appraising items, lore masters remain at the front line of this trade. Okay, so lore master is kind of a treasure hunter, kind of the I hate to use this as a reference, but kind of an Indiana Jones, Laura Croft kind of character is what I kind of envision. For some reason, when I read Lore Master, it put me right in the mind of the LOTRO MMO, where the Lore Master is like the wizard. But apparently, there's no magic class in this game. We can see the combat skills for the Lore Master. Pretty much crossbow is his highest, and it's not as high as what you saw with the Thief and Assassin's highest combat skills. And lore is his lore and alchemy are his two main general skills. Interested in what the alchemy system is going to have for us. I know in Skyrim and in a few other games that's been pulled off pretty well, and for people who have the patience for it, it's pretty rewarding way to play the game. So we'll move on here to a grifter. While most thieves prefer to form gangs and act under the cover of darkness, grifters see no reason to trade the laws of society for the laws of a guild. Preying upon the gullible with a combination of personal magnetism and persuasion, the grifter's art is rarely noticed. I like that. It's kind of a bard type character, but a little more sinister slant to it. I find that to be kind of an original class. The bard, the grifter, starts out with no faction reputation at all. Obviously, he's not a combat-oriented character. Relies heavily on charisma and intelligence, and then perception right below that. His combat skills are the weakest we've seen so far. Doesn't have any real thieving skills, but his etiquette, persuasion, and streetwise, also a little bit of lore, and he's also good at trading. So this guy has some strong general skills. So this is kind of an interesting class. This is kind of a class that I'm, as a player, I'm attracted to this kind of class that really is reliant on finding alternate solutions to problems. you know, in the same way that the thief steals his way to his success. I like the grifter, who's kind of the beguiling character. Maybe you can develop as the game goes on. Obviously, you still have 23 skill points to spend even at the beginning. You can kind of flavor him how you'd like, so to speak. So that's an interesting class. Next, they have the drifter. This is another new one. I like the originality of the classes. I mean, some of them do fit classic archetypes, but they went out on a limb here and tried something different. I'm impressed with this so far. While for most people the focus is on trying to belong and having a place to call their own, drifters display no such sentiment, valuing freedom above all else and answering to no man. They prefer instead to move freely without the weight of any shackles, never staying in one place for too long. This is the lead character in 90% of RPGs. It's kind of this drifter, this strange wanderer. If it had included in the description that he also had amnesia and needed to discover his past, he would be archetypical for 90% of RPGs. So this was a good class to throw in there. Statistically, the drifter. Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't switched to the drifter yet. I apologize. Okay, and we can see it. We can see from the drifter when you actually click to be the drifter. This is the archetypical RPG protagonist. It does not give you any presets for statistics with the drifter. He's a man who no one knows. He's from nowhere. He's been nowhere. And again, more than likely they just forgot to mention that he also has amnesia. So that's another interesting class. That's just kind of one that's a build your own class. There's no template associated with it. And we'll move on to the mercenary. This appears to be more of a warrior archetype here. Mercenary. In a world rife with conflict, those with martial skills are never idle for long. Most mercenaries take on a personal contract with individual clients. Although they are occasionally embroiled in the greater machinations of noble houses, determined by gold, their allegiances lie with the highest bidder. I gotta tell you, they did a good job on these descriptions. As I'm reading some of these descriptions, I'm literally thinking myself in the game as this type of character and what kind of possibilities that opens up to me. As we go through the mercenaries, again, template, any of these are subject to change. You could take the strength down and make this guy kind of a fast, dexterous warrior. You can make him more of a... You can do anything with these characters that you want to. There are just certain presets, it looks like, to skills that can't be altered. But you do still get 20 points of your own to make these guys into what you want them to be. Strength, dexterity, constitution. Obviously, his weak points, intelligence, and charisma. I wouldn't mind seeing a mercenary, though, with charisma. That might be a character that I'd be interested in building in this game. And we go over to combat. You see all the melee weapons or his stock and trade. And then as we go over to his general skills, actually the mercenary sneak and steal aren't that far behind the thieves, which I find to be interesting. So that's a pretty standard warrior, melee warrior character. And last but not least, the merchant. Another one that I think I would be interested in. So far, I'll tell you, the grifter and the merchant are what I'm kind of leaning towards, just because it seems to offer a way to explore some of what this game promised as alternate means of gameplay outside of just the, sword and board. Here I come, I'm going to bonk you over the head, and you're going to fall down, and I'm going to, take your gold, kind of thing. But let's go ahead and find out a little bit more about the merchant. I love these descriptions. Merchant. Behind every noble's power and every struggle for territory lies the gold of a merchant, Respected and feared, more than mere traders, merchants manipulate entire markets and those that depend upon them. People, information, and favor all have a price, but only the merchant knows their true worth. So the merchant isn't unlike the grifter, really, if we go back. I mean, and statistically, the merchant and the grifter, their templates are the same. And actually, I don't see not one statistical difference between the grifter and the merchant. So statistically, those two are actually identical. The only difference I see is their faction reputations, which the grifter gets none and the merchant gets some. Now, depending on how these factions interact with one another, maybe favor with one is a negative in the eyes of... I don't know how exactly that's going to affect you in game. But again, the role-playing flavor of these two would be different, obviously. So next we'll move down right here and we'll check out some of the faction reputation information. There's no tooltip associated with faction reputation as a general concept, but these are kind of the different factions that I guess we're going to meet once we're inside the game. House Aurelian. That's going to be my best guess. If I slaughtered that, I apologize to the people at Ironworks. House Aurelian. Main forces maintain order in the colonies, far away from the fiercest and bloodiest battlefields during the war. With the world decimated and society in chaos, General Gallius moved swiftly to take firm control of the most strategic forts and towns. Today, House Aurelian controls 70% of what's left of Maeodoran, a town built around the old fortress, making every effort to make sure the power balance remains in their favor. Resentment remains amongst the other houses towards Aurelian's current standing. Okay, so this is the big strong house, apparently. The well-established. Let's say it that way. This appears to be the well-established house. House Crasis. Withdrawing from war and politics, House Crasis dedicated itself to the sciences and arcane research, perhaps in the planes of existence, particularly in the planes of existence. Consequently, they were instrumental in the summoning, having constructed the portal and the many machines that powered it. Most mages persisted in the last days, depriving the house not only of generations of wisdom and research, but of clarity and focus. Today, House Crasis calls for the proper worship and the restoration of the gods. Okay, so it does mention mages here. I don't see anything on this character creation screen that would lead me to believe that you can be a mage, but maybe I'm incorrect. House Daratan. Once the largest and most influential noble house, controlling 7 provinces and more than 20 legions, House Daratan was almost destroyed during the war. Today, less than 100 people still loyal to the Daratan name control a small town named Tehran. That has definitely seen better days. As House Daratan draws its last gasp, some within are preparing for one last fight to shift the balance of power and restore the noble house at any cost. So we can see the 3 houses. One is kind of a fallen house, the House of Daratan. One is trying to restore the world and restore proper worship of the gods. So magic, religion, faith kind of surround the House Crasis. The House Aurelian. These are the guys who established themselves in bad times. So apparently in the backstory of the game, the world has been decimated and society is in chaos. So House Aurelian seems to be the leaders in re-establishing the world as it was known. Boatmen of Styx. In the Halcyon days of the Empire, the Emperor commanded his own guard. Apart from their regular duties of protection for the Emperor, they were trained as experts in infiltration and assassination. Many political and military opponents would meet with unexplainable misfortune or death in the rapture of the night, ensuring the long-standing stability of the Empire. After the fall, without a master to serve, the guard disbanded into the chaos of the fallen empire. Once outside, they found that even as the world lay in ruins, their peacekeeping services were in great demand. An assassin's order was established that later bore the proud name of the regiment, the Boatmen of Styx. So this is a guild of assassins, essentially. The Commercicum, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that these are merchants, but we will read here. Trade and merchant guilds have always existed, but in the shadow of the apocalypse wrought by the power of the sword, the power of gold has become far greater influence in the affairs of state. The head merchants have now centralized, controlling all trade. Caravans, tariffs, mines, and marketplaces operate by the grace of the Commercium alone. Independent traders in outposts and remote villages still exist, but trading in towns is not without its problems or dangers. Okay, so we can see the Commercicum, depending on how you want to look at them. I'm sorry, the Commercium. Depending on how you want to look at them, is either a merchant guild or the mafia. One of the two. So we'll see how that plays out when we get into the game here. And again, this is starting to shape out. Looking at these, starting to shape out the story a little bit. Apparently, this is a medieval, post-apocalyptic world, is what I'm gathering. So this is a different kind of setting than maybe what I've seen in past games. The Imperial Guards. That sounds pretty straightforward. Formed from the remnants of the Imperial Army, the Imperial Guards are an independent, influential, and powerful faction maintaining order and preventing open war between noble houses. While the noble houses squabble amongst themselves, cloaked in subterfuge, espionage, and counter-espionage, the Guards are more idealistic. Their primary goal is the restoration of the Empire to its former glory, regardless of how unrealistic this seems at present. So, they seem like they're quite noble. The 40 Thieves. Okay. The 40 Thieves Guild is a large and seemingly indefatigable network of thieves, smugglers, and other criminally inclined citizens. Operating in every town and tracing its origin to the early days of the Empire, it is said that in the past, the 40 kingpins of 40 largest towns used to coordinate the network. Speculation is divided as to the relations and the ties of the 40 Thieves of yore and its current incarnation, but the name persists. Okay, so these guys are the mob. This is actually, okay, this is the Thieves Guild. So those appear to be the different factions that we're going to run into once we get our character made and get into the game. Going through the weapons, these are pretty standard, pretty self-explanatory what these do. Lockpick, sneak, steal, traps. I'm interested how traps kind of play out in the game. The theoretical knowledge and practical applications of traps. We warn that the leading experts agree that the best traps aren't those that cause minor inconvenience, but those that kill trespassers instantly. So if you're planning to trespass a lot, you may want to consider learning how to detect and disarm traps first. Okay, so that's standard trap skill. Disguise isn't one that we see too often. The art of creating a different persona by modifying manners and appearance. It comes in handy when being yourself isn't enough, but may require an extensive wardrobe. So that's kind of interesting. You have the ability with this skill to, I don't know if there's a crime and punishment system in the game where you might have to use that to disguise your identity. So maybe we'll pick a character that utilizes some of these social skills in the game, because that's really probably what's going to set the game apart from other games in the genre. etiquette, the understanding of proper behavior protocols and how to apply them to your benefit. This is probably similar to maybe charm. Persuasion, the smooth art of convincing people to act in your interest by reasoning and personal magnetism. Streetwise, don't see this one in too many games. A mix of different traits ranging from shrewd awareness to inability to trust that are most helpful when one deals with people a lot. Okay. Alchemy, another interesting skill. The mystical art of transforming mundane, organic, and non-organic elements into magical items, like healing salves, potions that destroy metal, liquid that burns, black powder fireballs. A must-have skill for mad scientists. Now that sounds like just good old-fashioned RPG fun right there. Being able to design potions with various damage and status effects. Right up my alley. Crafting. A skilled craftsman has knowledge to create and improve their own equipment. While many good items can be found or bought, nothing can match the quality of a balanced blade forged from rare ores. So the game also is going to have a crafting system. I'm pretty impressed so far. I'm actually, when I do the next video, I'm going to go and look up some more background on the game, see if we can get some more information on these alchemy and crafting systems. I did look up information about the game before doing this video, but I didn't look in depth into these topics. The knowledge and understanding of the events long gone, ancient languages, forgotten rituals, and mysterious objects. It's always a winner in a post-apocalyptic world. So lore looks like it's probably the ability to identify artifacts, maybe even gives you the ability to identify magic or enchanted, somehow improved weapons. And trading is pretty standard. So guys, we've been over basically the whole character creation screen. We've gone pretty in detail over every feature. That's probably about as much as we can know about this without actually making a character and seeing how these things play out in the actual game world. And that is something that has led me to create several characters in several different games over the years. If you guys want to post a comment, if there's a particular background or a particular style of play that you want to see done in the coming videos, please feel free to go into the comment section or drop me a message and let me know. I'm pretty open to suggestions. Like I said, I'm leaning towards the more social classes, maybe lore master, grifter, merchant. But if guys want to see assassins and thieves, then far be it from me to deny you that. Like I said, it's just a demo, so I can do multiple playthroughs as multiple different characters, maybe show you guys some of the differences in how these different types of characters can play out. Might even do a female character, see if there are any different options related to gender that might be available. From what I understand, this is that type of game. It's going to give you those options. It's going to give you that open-endedness that allows you to really role play in an RPG. You know, as opposed to following a set linear course, or as opposed to following a set of conversation, talk, go to next area, you know, hit bad guy overhead with weapon, return and collect loot. You know, that kind of thing. I think this game is going to get you away from that and get you into some different elements where you can solve things in different ways. And I want to take a look at this post-apocalyptic medieval setting that we're going to be playing in. I think that's going to be extremely interesting. So that's it for this video, guys. I just want to show you the character creation screen, and we're going to, in our next video, we're going to actually go through and create a character. And we're going to jump into the world of the Age of Decadence. So thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you watching. And you guys take it easy. Once again, this is Endgamer, Indie Evolution Channel.